Recording. And good afternoon, everybody. It's Friday. It's our Lunch and Learn session. Today, our topic is going to be establishing a common bond and a team Concord. As the students in the Leadership Academy are going through the team operational rhythm program, we have extensively talked about having the right people in the right roles, about having a unified focus, about selecting meaningful metrics. But all of it really comes down to establishing a team Concord, right? Really, that's combining those right people, right roles, the unified vision, and the meaningful metrics all into one. It is, as a leader, it is our responsibility to establish a common bond, so that is to facilitate it, not to do it to them, but to actually bring people together and through conversation, through word search, through a discovery process, that you want to come together and getting a sense of a feeling of oneness, and that will drive forward. And the reason why that is so very important is that as you start exploring the establishing of scorecards on your unit and a huddle board, that team Concord, that team bond can be put onto the board itself as a continuous reminder that we agreed at one time to do this together as one. So there's a process on how to go about doing that. So I will lay that out today. And again, our one-to-one coaching sessions will do that more on a very departmental level as you see fit over the next couple of weeks to come. So again, thank you for joining today. It's always available after the fact on our YouTube channel, and I'll post it into a Thinkific platform so you can review it at any point in time. So again, to establish a common bond, remember the 4 pillars I talked about that really is a go-to for any leader. We have to make sure that we find that mutual respect. Mutual respect, and too often people get hung up on the fact that you have to earn my respect. We as leaders have to come into an organization or into a team, and often we have to adopt a team. We don't get to select all of the team members. We have to show respect, right? That we have to provide respect. And then over time, people can see if that is going to be lasting type of respect. But the aim here is to find that level of mutual respect, getting to know each other on a more deeper level, appreciating each other for who we are as people, and of course, making sure that we stay and follow up with our commitments. Those are really key elements of building that trust. The second and third part is a common bond and common understanding. I'd suggested some time ago a shield exercise, getting a piece of paper divided into 6 areas, and have each individual person on your team write down 6 things that they feel personally connected to. And once they have completed that, is about presenting that in the team environment. And what you will find out if you give the directions, don't compare to each other, but relate with each other. You will find out that we have a lot more in common than we have than we are different. Although it might be a religion that is Protestant, or Catholic, or Jewish, or Muslim, but we still have an appreciation for belief, for faith, or for children, or for family, or for sports, or a variety of other things that can bring us together, right? That helps establish a common bond and common understanding. And then the fourth component that is to remain teachable. That is to remain open-minded to what others have to suggest. It is only through that process that we can really expand ourselves and go beyond the borders of what we are commonly known to as that, stay within the box. We can go beyond the box and really go far, and that can help drive performance because every voice is important to all of us. So again, it's the first is to establish areas of agreement, a common bond, and then to understand the reasons for seeing these things differently. And remember, from a leader standpoint, and VP level or director level or manager level, supervisor level, team leader level, or the ground floor on the team member level, it is very different. Right, and the longer we are removed, the further we are removed from the front line, the more difficult it is for us to remember that. So again, once you get into these rooms, right, into a meeting room, and you start establishing this common bond, this exercise, make sure that you maybe even take the time to go on the Gemba. I go to see where the work gets done. walk a mile in somebody's shoe, actually go do the job for a little bit. So you have a better and deeper understanding. It also builds up a tremendous amount of respect between the front line and their leaders itself. To pretend that you remember what it was like, or say, well, I did that job 20 years ago, is not helping matters, right? We have to recognize that things change. And by making a statement, you're actually telling them that I know better, right? That's leading with pride and ego. We're trying to not do that, right? We're trying to lead with confident humility. So again, as a leader, you are not, it's not about title, it's about being a facilitator of a conversation to find this common bond between the team members in your particular unit. So some ground rules that you have to live by, right? The first mindset is that you want to come out of it with a win-win. You want to come up with solutions and a statement that everybody can buy into. It means that everybody, there might be, not the perfect solution for everybody. Right? You might have to lose someone on the fringes, but at the common bond at the core, we want to say that we have something that we can both believe in as a team. Now, the same thing as we talked about having the right people in the right roles, or those people who are fully committed, right, and self-directed versus the people who are the saboteurs or the late adopters. There might be a big spread between the two of them, but as you do this together, through word games and through the SHIELD exercise, you can bring people together and people can learn how to relate, right? Making it safe, right, by saying this is, what you hear here, what we do here, let it stay here. We don't talk behind each other's backs. We don't take it outside that Susie said this or Susie said that. We can come out with something really fantastic. Satisfy the needs rather than the wants. Right? And I spoke about that, is that make sure that you go through the process of verification. One of the things that I advocate for, the same thing as when you do your critical issue analysis, take Post-it notes, right? You should have them as standard operating procedures and equipment in your offices. Give everybody a stack of Post-it notes. Write down real quickly on the Post-it, what are my wants for this team? Right? Put them onto the wall, group them into natural groupings, and that will give you direction, that will set the tone of how you start developing that common bond. Next is, contrast to fix mixed understandings, right? When others are misunderstand with their purpose or intent, use contrasting. Start with what you don't intend or mean, and then explain what you do intend or mean. In other words, how can we have a conversation that we come at it from different angles? And as an example, today's environment doesn't allow us to, it's really not prudent to have a conversation around politics, right? And we say, don't use, talk about politics around the table for Thanksgiving, because people get so upset about it. We have to make sure that in this environment, we have to be open-minded to other people's opinion, and therefore we have to learn to listen and understand. Right? And the key word is here, learn to listen to understand. You don't need to agree with it, but you need to try to understand their perspectives. If you have people from many different cultures around the world sitting around the table, there's some interesting things you can learn about each other, right? But you have to be open to it. You have to be teachable to that. And then, of course, continue to enforce this out-of-the-box thinking. I always promote, use that 9-dot exercise I did early on with all of you, is that have them connect the lines, connect the dots. Have them see why it is so very difficult to think outside of the box and do different from how everybody else is doing. My tip of the day today talked about how to look at a team and meetings in a different manner. But if you want different results, we have to take different actions. Out of the box thinking should be promoted at all times. The crazier thoughts, the better off we are, right? Because it allows people to feel free to express. And through that process, you get really to the tip of the spear much quicker. Now, why do we know this works? And I think that I used a clip of the San Antonio Spurs in the program itself. And then people, go back to that and, they were a team of individual players, but they came together as a true team versus, the Miami Heat was a team of stars, right? Big name, big dollars, big everything. But interesting enough, the San Antonio Spurs spanked the Miami Heat, right? And the secret was that they truly played as a team. Each person was in the right role, had the right skill sets, understood their function on the team itself. They were respectful, they were selfless, they played as one. And they executed flawlessly in conjunction with their coach. And through that process, they actually ended up winning an NBA championship. Your team too, even if you feel that it's dysfunctional today, or maybe somewhere in the storming phase, all teams can become high-performing teams. You just have to go through the tough steps of finding that common bond, common understanding, and continue to make that partnering assessment of having the right people in the right roles. The goal of a servant leader is always to manage up before we start managing out, right? So the team Concord is a purpose statement at the end of the day on what does a team stand for, and that represents our actions on a day-to-day basis. So let's dive a little deeper into that. So to ensure the cadence of accountability, and that will be the topic for this particular week, which I think is the magic sauce to becoming a high-performance team on a consistent basis, getting things across the finish line, is by finding this agreement amongst the team itself, right, that everybody feels that they're bound to be accountable on a weekly, really on a daily basis and on a weekly basis for the task and for the things that they say they will be doing. Right, so a team should set a higher purpose. One of the goals of a team is not to say, listen, I'm going to be mediocre this year. The goal is I'm going to be a high performance, high reliability team. Right, in healthcare, that's what CMS is looking for. That's what Joint Commission is looking for. Right, so you want to set that North Star of high reliability. High reliability means higher quality, higher levels of safety. It has nothing to do about profits. Right, this is all about patient directed. As you execute on that, the profits or growth will come out of it automatically. Right? But it is something you can fall back upon even during the difficult times. And every team goes through a period of time of struggle. But if you go back to the board, and we encourage actually when you have the huddle board up, and you put your purpose statement on top of that, right? That quick why statement. Start every huddle with a reminder of what we came up with as a why. As you know, I call my teams, team endurance. I think that Ernest Shackleton's story is just a phenomenal story to refer back to. That was set up for complete disaster period. That was set up for all people on that ship when it got stuck in the ice at the South Pole to die. But because it was through strong leadership, displaying all of the things we're talking about, developing that common bond and common understanding, by setting that clear team objective that we as a team will get through this difficult period of time and stick together, even through the hard times, in order to get a positive outcome. And the positive outcome that after years and multiple attempts, they were able to bring the crew back as a whole, right? Nobody died. So here's a quick diagram, is that if you identify a higher purpose and a higher outcome, and you determine the behaviors to build that unity, and you have to clarify the performance expectations. If you did it and you build out of that a team Concord, and you remind yourself of that on a regular basis, the likelihood of performance goes up exponentially. Right? It is through good communication, it's good decision making, it's high ethical behaviors, and make sure that we have continuous respect, mutual respect for each other. Now, this sounds very complicated, and in reality, it's really simple to come up with this, but it is very difficult to maintain it if you don't make it a priority, right? So the purpose of a Concord is to elevate how a partnership works together to qualify for extraordinary achievements while creating highly satisfying relationships. We talked about the partnering together, the 1 + 1 = 3 is where the magic takes place. And it requires work. You as leaders have to make this continuous assessment to where am I on the spectrum of partnership. Now, we have agreed that we don't need to be in synchrony, right? That 1 plus 1 is 3, that oneness. But we certainly need to have an integrated relationship with those who work for us, right? Anybody who's just compatible dysfunction, we have to put some sweat equity into it in order to overcome that. Building a team Concord as a team will help you elevate that status much quicker. Right? It is not, you're not doing things to individuals, you're not doing it in small groups, you do it as one. Right? Because on the end of the day, you want to achieve a concord. Right? So the achieving the concord is about the higher purpose or outcome. So part of the exercise, once you have put onto the board, and you have found that mutual respect, that common bond, you start talking about what are the attributes that we stand for. What really binds us together? Identifying the behaviors to build unity. And again, you can use your Post-it notes here and you ask the question, right? What is the higher purpose? Everybody writes down what the higher purpose is. You group them and you come up with a higher purpose. You ask the question, what are the behaviors that we need to have for each team member in order to really work as a high performance team? Post-it notes, rapid on the ball, sort them, and then pick out the 4 or 5 that have the most meaning to it, that you can really buy into. All right, and then start developing 3 to 5 statements. Now, if you have a group of 10 or more, then break it up into smaller segments and have each one of them go back and develop a statement, a higher purpose statement, and have them come back and present that back to the team after 10, 15 minutes or so. And through that process, you have multiple iterations in order to get to the tip of the spear. Now, if this sounds familiar to you, yes, with the class, with all the students, we've been working on your why statement. Right? The first one likely does not represent exactly what you are doing today. Right? So it takes multiple iterations of going over and over and over as refining it to get to the point that it really makes sense. You feel connected to it. The team feels connected to it. You can repeat it and talk about it. If anybody comes on the unit, what does your team stand for? Is, well, let's go to the huddle, let me show you. All right, so here's an example of what it is you can consider. Of course, you need to make it your own. So first thing you try to come up with is a name, right? Or a slogan for your team, something that people can buy into. In my team, endurance, right, is what I have adopted. But here's an example: unified even through storms. That must have been a team that understands that there is a lot of natural conflict that takes place. But their message right here is extremely strong, right? We are unified. We are in it together. It's again one step closer to developing that fully committed, self-directed type of partner. Right? That can be either integrated or even synergistic with you. So unified even through storms, right? So that we are respectful, accountable, equally yoked, considerate, and dedicated to excellence. Remember those 4 to 5 attributes, the behaviors? That's where that comes into play. Essentially speaking, once you get these 4 or 5 on paper, you're going to make a personal commitment, right? Because now I was part of the team that developed those words, so I'm buying into this. I've even printed these onto a nice certificate and had everybody sign the periphery of it as a way of making a commitment. Now, we all know that in some of the environments, a union or non-union environment, this is not a binding contract. Right? This is a behavior contract. If you sign it, you do none of that, I cannot use this document against you. But of course, there's other means. Right, that if you set an expectation for performance and you start measuring performance and people are not performing, and you properly use your 4 levels of motivation, and on the end of the day, the action that you have to take in order to get them to perform is really based on their behavior, not your behavior, right? So out of that, out of the team statement and then the attributes that they will be standing for, the behaviors itself, now you want to bring clarity. What is it that you're going to be doing? So we will communicate. We will openly, with consideration for each other, be respectful and candid. What a wonderful statement that would be, that as you go into meetings, that you find a way for everybody to contribute. I talked about that today, that our introverts, who are sometimes the smartest people in the group, will not speak up in an open meeting. So how can we overcome that? Maybe we can have a one-to-one meeting with them prior to the meeting, or they can submit or add in a different way, like writing prior to, in order to ask the questions that need to be asked in a safe environment, right? So we have to change our behaviors to make sure that we are fully inclusive. One voice team loyalty. New ideas need to be discussed with the team. Everybody's voice will be heard before the final decision is made, with the team's best interest in mind. Limit the outside influences that may try to penetrate and waver our team. Some of you are going through the process of becoming a magnet hospital. This is one bullet point that you'll find as a key deliverable in Magnet, right? The shared governance is making sure that everybody on the team has a voice, and that you find this way of the common bond to drive forward in a very open environment. Right? Equality, ensure the workload is equally shared and encourage work-life balance. Develop a team friendship that is close and has a bond of a family. Now, I will say this, that the word family becomes very controversial in business, meaning family to me means that I'm going to come to a barbecue and to your bar mitzvahs and weddings. But that is not always promoted. So again, this is a choice that you as a facilitator or your team needs to make on how to express that best without, while maintaining a healthy boundary between work life. It's no different than when we talk about separating somebody's worth from somebody's performance. Here too, right? You want to get to know the people on an individual level, having that emotional connection to them, of that genuine care, that genuine partnership, genuine love. But there needs to be, there can be a limit there too. And of course, the last one is the accountability. So we're mutually accountable to achieve our goals and individual desired future states, to develop a reputation of being highly capable individuals who deliver excellence. So this is an example of a team Concord. This is a contract that a group of people are making that they're going to abide by. And as I suggested in the team operational rhythm program, every December, before you start the new year, you should have a point of reflection. How did I do this past year? And then look at it, project on how, setting the vision for the year coming up. Not only what is it that you want to accomplish, how do you want to measure it? What are the targets of that, but the smart targets of that? Updating your team Concord is also a very important piece of the puzzle. Again, this seems like work when you look at it, like, oh my God, another thing to do. But the softer stuff of leadership, how you can bring people together, how you can get people to learn to listen to each other, how to appreciate each other, how to appreciate the differences between us. And then out of that, drive a team Concord or something that we can all equally buy into. That does not change the behavior of the non-compliant person versus somebody who's an owner, but it does start bringing people together, and you can have accountability around it. So think about that for yourself over the days and weeks to come, and how you can best facilitate this in your work environment. It really works. And you can have a lot of fun with it. Right, the next time you go on a team retreat, as we should start doing soon again, right? It doesn't make a difference if you go to a local bowling alley or a museum or to a play or to a ball game. Right, next time you can make up a T-shirt with your team name on it. Just representing a team name gives it a special feeling that we're in it together. So with that said, I'll open it up to any questions you may have as we have a few minutes left. And I'll stop the recording to keep it a safe environment.